Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stuart Paintings. On today's oil painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous realistic beach sunset. I'm going to teach you how to paint clouds, how to mix realistic colours to blend and create realism, how to paint waves and ocean water and how to do that very easily by using different shades, how to use darker shadow colours to bring things forward and more soft pastel colours to push things back, and then how to put detail over the top so you can paint this fantastic realistic oil painting at home in just under an hour. So let's get into it. So a nice easy tutorial, you're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, Naples yellow, lemon yellow, cad medium yellow, cad orange, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, dark cyan purple, raw umber and ivory black. Now I've got a burnt sienna stained canvas that I've just used acrylic paint just to create an outline. I've got half the canvas as a sky, which is going to be our sunset. And we've got half the canvas as some ocean, and we're going to have some nice waves coming towards the viewer and then the beach at the bottom. So if you'd like to copy down the outline, feel free to pause the video and just copy it down. We're going to have some nice pushback clouds and a gorgeous sunset, and we're going to start at the back like always and paint the sky. So first we're going to mix a nice sort of pastel colour. I'm using white and Naples yellow. My Naples yellow is kind of like a skin tone, it's much more peachy. So we're going to add some lemon yellow into it. But basically to create Naples yellow, all you do is have cad yellow, lots and lots and lots of white, and a dot of brown. So cad yellow, lots and lots of white to make it pastel, and a dot of brown just to make it a bit more neutral. And all we're going to do, we're just going to block in the horizon sort of colour. So as the sun sets, it creates a nice sort of glow. We're going to use yellow and this predominantly white. I think it's just a bit too pastel, so we're going to add a little bit more lemon yellow, and we're just going to create a glow of the heat of the sun as it goes down under the horizon. So I'm just going to add a tad of cad yellow. Cad yellow is much more golden, and lemon yellow is just like a lemon obviously, and it's a lot more brighter. So by combining the two and having lots and lots of white, you can get this lovely sort of Naples yellow, this nice pastel colour. And all we're trying to do, we're just trying to make a nice glow at the bottom. And by having a nice bright colour right at the bottom and in the middle, it draws the viewer's eyes to the centre of our painting. So a little trick, just having a nice focus point, we can draw the viewer to look straight down like they're standing on the beach. So we're going to add a little bit more of this cad yellow medium, which is like a lovely golden yellow. If you haven't got that at home, you can just add a tiny dot of orange just to make your yellow a little bit more golden. So yellow and a tiny dot of orange. And all we're going to do, we're just in the middle here where the sun's gone down. We're just going to create a faint glow in the sky. And it should nicely blend into the previous Naples yellow. So oils are fantastic for realism, but they are a lot harder than the acrylic paints. So we're just going to add a tiny bit of orange to make a peach colour. So cad yellow and orange. And a tiny dot of brown just to suck a little bit of colour out. So brown is a really good way to mix realistic colours because it sucks a bit of the vibrancy out. So as I was saying, acrylic paintings are a lot easier to use. We'll still do lots of acrylic tutorials, but oil paints have this much more realistic sheen to them, so they make your work look a lot more realistic, but they are much harder because you almost have to do things first time, because unlike acrylics where you can just dry them, you can't really do that with oils. You have to wait maybe a week for them to dry. So what we're going to do, we're just going to use this colour and we're just going to create a little shimmer here on the wet sand. So where we have the water retract back, you get some lovely wet sand and it creates a lovely glistening sort of sheen to it where the sunlight is shining down. So we're just going to use that colour just to sort of block it in, saves us mixing it later again. And all we're going to do is we go up in the sky, we're going to get cooler. So we're going to get plenty of white. So a big dollop of white. And we're going to get loads more white. And a tiny bit of Naples yellow. So we're just going to make it very, very pastel. And what we're doing, we're trying to create the look like the sky is cooling as the heat source of the sun is going down. We want to create sort of the sky look like it's cooling. And we're not going to just jump to blue, because yellow and blue create green. So by using these colours, we can sort of have a safety buffer that we don't get a green sky. And all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to create X shapes with my brush. And just while it's all wet, I'm just going to blend it into the previous yellow. So we have a nice seamless transition from one colour to the other. And then, as I say, we can't really jump from yellow to blue. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a little bit of purple to our mix. So we've got Naples yellow, lots and lots of white, and a tiny dot of purple. And we're just going to make a cool colour. We're just going to test it on our canvas and see if it's too dark or too light. So we'll just test it first. Now I think that's a bit too purple. It's a bit too harsh. So even though it looks nice and pastel on our palette, on the canvas, it looks too dark. So by adding a lot more white and a tiny bit of Naples yellow, we can just warm it up. So if you notice, I've got all the bright sort of hot colours on the left hand side, and I've got all the cool colours on the right hand side. So purples and blues and browns, blacks, they're very good to create shadow and cool things down. And warm colours such as yellows, oranges, reds, pinks, they are perfect to warm things up. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to combine the two elements. We've got some warm Naples yellow, but we've got some cool purple and lots of white. And we're just creating this sort of bridge between the hot yellow at the bottom of the sky, and then in a minute when we add some blue, so it looks all natural and realistic and you don't get a green sky. So now we're going to go to the blue. So we're going to get lots and lots of white to make it nice and pastel. And we're going to get some cerulean blue, which is a bit more turquoise. So cerulean blue is really, really light, very bright. So you don't need much. We're going to get a tiny bit of cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is more purpley and cooler. We're going to add a tiny bit of purple, just a dot. But it's predominantly white. And we're just going to make this lovely pastel blue. And again, we're going to create our X shapes. We're going to work our way down. Just creating those X shapes and just gently blend it into that nice purple we just mixed. And what it should do, because our blending is really easy with oils, it's much more natural because the paint's all wet. We're going to get a perfect gradient and transition in our sky where you don't notice the colours changing and it looks really, really natural. See? So we're just going to block in this area. We're just going to get loads of this paint. And we're just going to go right up to about here. So I think that's about right. I'm going to just do the middle here. So think of a line just going straight across the canvas. So there we go. So we've got this nice light blue now. And then as we go up into the painting, the sky is going to get darker because it's further away from that sun. But before I do that, I'm just going to use that colour to match in the ocean. So all I'm doing, I'm using that light pastel blue just to create a shimmer on this side. So if we have the light coming from the right hand side, if you think water's see-through, it's kind of reflecting the colour of what's in the sky. So what we're doing, we're just trying to match it, and we're just trying to have a nice reflection on that ocean water. And by doing it now, if our paint we've run out, or if our paint dried and the colours don't match, that would be really annoying. So by painting it in now, we've got this colour that all matches the sky and it creates this mirror effect. And again, it just creates the realism. So it's really easy once you know all the tricks. It's just having someone teach them to you, just being aware of them. So we're just going to go towards the left, but we're not going to cover all the left because I want to make the left darker because it's going to have a big rain cloud above it and it's going to create some shade. So we're going to keep this area a little. We're going to add a darker colour, and obviously we'll block in the beach at the bottom. So I'm just going to, where my paint was a bit watery, I'm just going to go over it a little bit just here in this corner. I'm using water-based oil paints because I can't stand the smell of terps and stuff. It makes me feel a bit ill. So by using the water-based ones, I just use a jug of water, and they're still oil paints, so they still take ages to dry and everything, and the consistency is the same. But I don't have any stinky smell, which is awesome. And for some reason, they're a lot cheaper as well. So the company's called Artisan, so I'll put them in the description box. So what I'm doing, I'm mixing lots and lots of white, but I'm adding a little bit more cobalt blue. I've got a tiny bit of cerulean blue and a tiny bit of purple, but predominantly white with a little bit of cobalt blue, and I've added a dot of brown as well just to make it more silvery. So as we were saying, brown takes a bit of the vibrancy of the colour out and just makes it a bit more realistic. Now I think that colour is really nice, but I think it's a bit too light. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use it for now, and I'm going to blend it into the previous colour. I'm just going to swap to a bigger brush, and my brush I just took straight out of my water pot, and it had way too much water, so look how thin that paint is. That is terrible. So I'm going to dry my brush, and I'm just going to add some more cobalt blue and a little bit of purple just to make it cooler and in the shade. A little brown just to take some of the vibrancy out. A bit more purple. But it's still got quite a lot of white in this mix. So it's still very pastel. So let's add more brown just to neutralise it. Put more white in. And let's just make her a little bit darker. There we go. Yeah, so what we're trying to do, we're trying to make the corners and the top of the painting darker, because obviously in real life the sun's gone down, it's a sunset. So the light source is right at the bottom, so obviously the top of the painting would be darker. But by making your skies darker, what it does is it frames the composition, it frames your painting, and it gets people to stare down the middle, but it just looks so much more realistic. And obviously when you're finished, it just frames your work and just makes it look really, really nice and real. So this lovely blue, we're just going to gradually come down, and we're just going to add some white to the mix because it's a bit of a jump from that pastel blue to that really dark blue. So by just adding some white, just having a section that's a tad lighter, we can create our X shapes, look, and we just blend the two areas together. So what we want, look, we want yellow at the bottom going into the Naples yellow and white, going into the purple, and then going into the cerulean blue, and then lastly going into the two darker blues. But as I say, with oils, they are less forgiving, but they look fantastically real. So they are beautiful, and you can almost create perfection and realism. So what we want to do, we want to have nice transitions. So by taking a step back like I was just doing, just seeing where I've missed areas, where I need to blend it more. So take your time. If you find I go too quick, please pause the video and just go at your own speed. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to get some more of that darker blue, and I'm just going to make the left hand side a little bit darker, just above this big rain cloud, because I kind of want the light coming from the right, so I just want it all to match. So I'm just blending that into the previous colours really softly. So as I say, take your time, there's no rush. Ooh, look at that sky, it's looking so pretty. And while we've got that blue, why don't we use it a little bit to create some waves? So if you imagine the ocean is lovely and see-through, but obviously it would have, these waves would have its back to the sunlight, so they'd be nice and cool. So by using cooler colours such as purples and blues and this lovely cool pastel blue, we can imply that these areas are a bit more in the shade. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to create the illusion of some detail. I'm letting some of the lighter colour seep through and in some little gaps. And just here on the left, I'm going to just block her in and just make her nice and cool and blue. So where we've got that big rain cloud in the background, sort of casting a shadow. And then what you can do, you can create little just sort of divots just to imply little caps of waves, but still allowing lots of that lighter pastel blue to shine through. So again, it just looks like it's fading into one another, just like we did with the sky. So there we go. So we've got this lovely transition here on the water, and we've got the same here. We're going to work on these rain clouds. We're going to work on the bottom one first, and we want to push that really far back. So we're going to mix some of this blue mix that we just made, which was cerulean blue, lots of cobalt blue, tiny bit of brown, tiny bit of purple, and lots of white. We're going to add more brown to the mix to make it grayer. And we're going to add a tiny bit of Naples Yellow. Not too much, we don't want it too green, but we just want to test it out. We want to create a cool grey, so we're going to try it out first. I think it's still a little bit too blue. So what we can do is we try it on our canvas, see if we like it. I think we're going to add some more brown to it, make it a bit more earthy. Tiny bit more purple, just to make it grayer. There we go. So what we're trying to do, if you think at the horizon, you get sometimes low forming clouds. Well, we want to push that really back so it looks like it's fading off into the distance, and it looks like where the ocean and the horizon sort of meet and fade into one another. So by using this really nice pastel grey, we're not bringing it forward, we're pushing it back. So by using blues and greys, it looks like it's really far into the distance, you see. Whereas if we used a really dark colour, it would bring it really close towards the viewer. So what we're going to do, we're going to use these pastel greys, and we're going to test it out. Now this cloud, I want to have a bit nearer, so it's almost like coming towards the coast, sort of like it's above us. So we're going to use this pastel grey just to block her in, but I think we'll darken her and bring her a bit more closer. So let's just block her in for first, and then we'll decide what we're going to do with her. So as I say, I will do plenty more acrylic tutorials, don't worry, because they are fantastic for beginners. But I want to combine the two elements of both painting techniques, because oils are much more realistic, but they're slow. And the problem is, to do these tutorials, you would have to almost get lucky first time. It's very hard to do all the detail because you would have to wait for areas to dry and then go back to it. Whereas acrylics, you can just dry it with a hairdryer, and you can obviously change things much easier. So we'll do both. So, and I appreciate everyone who follows me on the channel might have spent money on acrylic paints, and I don't want to just replace that with oils. But you can combine the two, so you can paint in acrylics, and then you can go over the top and add detail and highlights in oils. A lot of cool artists on YouTube like Chuck Black and people do that. So there is the combination of the two, which we'll do later on as the tutorials get more advanced. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating a shape of a big rain cloud. And the great thing, look, as I said about acrylics, underneath, you can just paint over them. And no one would know it was there. So they are really, really good for outlines. So if you want to create outlines, you can always use acrylics. They dry really quick. And then we can go over the top with our oils. So all I'm doing just in that right hand side is just creating some little breakaway clouds. Now as I say, I'm going to make the clouds, the rain clouds, a bit darker. So I'm going to mix some purple and some brown and some cobalt blue. I'm going to add a little bit white just so it's not too dark. So dioxazine purple, some raw umber brown, some cobalt blue, A bit more brown, just to make it more grey. And a little bit of titanium white. And I'm just going to test her out. As I say with oils, by going over the top, the colours mix together. So if you've put a lighter colour down and you're now trying to put darker colour, sometimes you get a bit of a mush and it kind of blends together. But we're just going to make this area a little bit darker. Because if you have darker colours, it brings things closer to the viewer. And I want to bring these rain clouds a bit closer. And I want to push that horizon a bit further back. So I'm just creating some detail in the clouds. I'm just letting some of the lighter colour shine through. I'm just leaving some gaps. I'm just putting this darker colour in between. So over here I'm just going to push down a bit harder and make it a bit darker. So I've got plenty of paint. If you find that they are mixing together and you're not getting a nice darker colour, you can always just get a thicker amount of paint. So I'm just going to have some little ones coming away. Obviously they'll blend with the background sky, so they'll look a bit fainter with that lovely sort of whitey purple sky. And I'm just trying to make the clouds look nice and marshmallowy, so I'm just making them a bit bobbly. So let's have some breakaway ones up here at the top. So just by going around the edges and sort of fluffing them up, just making them a bit softer and having bits that break away, you can create a little bit of realism. So imagine like a marshmallow or a pillow. We're going to want to make them nice and wispy and soft. So let's just get more paint, so a little bit thicker paint. And same down the bottom here, we're just going to have some that are breaking away. So I know a lot of people struggle with clouds, so hence the fact I try to do as many cloud tutorials as I can. A really easy technique I'm going to show in a minute is to lay all the colours down first and then have all these sort of little bits breaking away. And then we'll poke some sky holes, which we've done lots of times with the acrylic tutorials. But if you can nail the colours down first, the colours and the transitions are the hardest bit. So adding all these little bits of detail, look, just adding little breakaway clouds and things like that, that's not hard, it just takes a bit of patience. But it's having all the sort of blended colours and things that will create the realism and trick the eyes. So we're just having a few, look, just break away. So we're trying to make them deliberately bobbly. You don't want a square cloud or a flat cloud. You want them all nice and marshmallowy and soft. So let's have one little one just breaking away up here. Just really faint. Let's just have a few just here. I'm using a really small brush, so that makes it really much easier to do these little dots. And I'm just going to add some more brown to the mix and some more cobalt blue to make her darker, and some purple. So less white, more paint, more dark colours, but it's the same combination: brown, purple and cobalt blue. So I've got nice thick paint, and I'm just going to make her darker and bring her a bit closer towards the viewer. So as I say, look, it's going to mix, even though the paint's really dark, because the lighter colour we put down first was lighter. It is going to mix, don't worry about that. But we just want to make her a shade darker. I want them to be big rain clouds. So let's just colour this one in at the bottom, just so they match. And can you see by having something darker, it brings it closer towards you. So the one at the horizon that's softer, that's pushing that one back, that cloud. But by having these darker ones, it's bringing it closer towards you. So we just make her darker here. Just blend that so it's not as harsh. So as I say, if you get any areas that are really, really harsh, you can just soften them up. Look, just go over the top and just blend it. So again, let's just create some texture in them. Just make this bottom bit a bit darker. Here we go. Easy peasy. So because this one is still not dark enough, just going over it again. So as I say, sometimes in painting, especially oil painting, you don't nail everything first time. I could edit this all out and all the people following at home would just see a big jump and it would look weird. So I always like to include things, because anything in life you don't always nail first time, it takes practice. So by just taking your time, being persistent, being determined, mind over matter. So there we go, let's just shade this area. There we go. Now it looks kind of dark, but when we put in the rocks and the cliff, we're going to almost create an off black and bring them really forward to make them look like they're silhouetted. So don't worry, it won't look too dark. Now I'm going to add a strange thing. I'm going to add some cad medium yellow to the mix to make it a little bit more greener, more musty. So we're going to create greeny grey, and we're just going to make the bottom of the clouds that are getting some of that yellow sunlight just a tad, just a little bit greener, and the same here on these clouds. I still want them quite pastel, so I'm just blending it into the colour, but I'm just having it so that a bit of that yellow is reflecting onto those grey clouds. There we go. Same here, just at the bottom. Just again, so all the transitions match. There's no big jump in colour. So by adding some yellow, you can warm your grey. It looks like it's getting a bit of sun on it. Just lighten it and blend it into that bit. And then just add a tiny bit more cad yellow to the mix to make it even more brighter. Tiny bit of blue and purple. Just going to make this area a little bit more softer with that warmer grey. So as I say, by adding yellows and oranges to your grey, you can make them warmer. By having purples and blues and browns, you can make them cooler. So if you think the top clouds are a lot cooler because they're getting less sunlight, but the ones where the sun is setting at the bottom here, because they've got a bit of that yellow in it, they're a bit warmer. So let's just have a few breakaway ones here. Just soften them up with my finger. So now we can get some orange. So I've got a clean brush. I'm just going to get some cad orange, lots of white, tiny bit of cad yellow. We should make a sort of peachy colour. So orange, cad yellow, lots and lots of white, get a lovely peachy colour. And then we're just going to have sort of an afterglow from the sun going down. And we're just going to blend that into these clouds and soften them up. So imagine the sun's just setting and you're getting all this lovely afterglow. Just blending that onto the horizon. And I'm just poking some holes here with the same colour into this cloud. Just really, really subtly. So there we go, just blending this area. And then with, again, a clean brush, I'm just going to get some lemon yellow and some cad yellow to make the colour that we had previously. And some white that we used for the background sky. Mine's a bit dry. And I'm just going to gently, just with a flat brush, I'm just going to just gently blend just this area. Minding that cloud, be careful not to blend into all the grey. But I'm just going to create a little hum here of yellow, just so it looks like a bit of that heat from the setting sun that's going up into the sky. And just blending it into that orange we just laid. Just again, so all the transitions are lovely and soft. Now, as I say, you can poke things called sky holes, which is basically holes in your clouds. So you can either get a palette knife and just scrape away some paint, or you can get lots of thick paint, like I'm doing, and just add some sky holes. So because you've worked so hard blending all your clouds, and you've got all these little bits breaking off, now when you poke these little holes in the sky, by just looking for the colours, so by using the same colours in your sky, so this area is a little bit yellow, so I'm just going to use some of our yellow background sky. But obviously up here it's a bit more pinky and white, isn't it? A bit more purple and white, excuse me. So I'm just using that colour. And the great thing is, if you don't like them, so look, if I poke some holes into the clouds, I've got a big blob on my brush. You can see the end of my brush is quite thick. I've got lots of paint. If you don't like them, look, you can just use your finger and smudge over them. So you can change it, you can just blend it. So if you don't like anything, it's not a bad thing if you want to change it back. So by just poking some holes with the sky colour, again, that creates the realism. So another little easy trick for painting clouds. So make them all fluffy, work on your transition and your colours, and then just have a few breaking away, and then poke some sky holes just to finish it off. And that's what creates the realism. So just little steps. So look at that, we've got this gorgeous blended sky, and we've got these lovely pushback clouds at the bottom of the horizon. And we've got all these lovely rain clouds. So now we're going to work on the ocean itself now. And we're going to use the colour that we used for our clouds, with that yellowy greeny bit. And we're just going to a little bit more white. So that colour we just used, which was brown, purple, cobalt blue, a little bit of cad yellow and some white. And we're just going to use that grey we used here on the horizon, and we're just going to start blocking in here this wet sand. So what we're trying to do, we're just trying to create some texture on this sand. So by trying to come downwards with the brush, just sort of diagonally, we're just trying to create it look like the water's peeled back, and it leaves sort of like a shimmer in the wet sand that's on the beach. So you get that lovely sort of mirror effect. So all I'm doing, I'm just stroking the paint downwards. And we can have some going across as well. And as I say, we're just trying to create sort of a shimmer. It's sort of like a texture in this wet sand. And I just want to make the edge nice and dark, just so there's a clear definition. So go on this side a little bit, this colour up here. This side I'm not going to make too dark, because obviously this bit's in the sun. So I'm not going to make it as dark as the left. We can just have look, sort of coming back, where I'm making the sort of stripes look like they're going diagonally. We'll create that sort of shimmer in the sand. We'll go over it in a minute, we're just trying to block it in first. Now I'm going to get some cobalt blue, just add that to the mix. So brown, cobalt blue. and some white, a tiny bit of purple and some cad yellow. And just here where the ocean and the sunset sort of meet, I'm just going to use this darker blue just to create some waves. So just like those far away clouds on the horizon, we want them quite pastel. So we've still got lots of white in our mix, but now we've got a little bit of brown and a little bit of the yellow to make it nice and grey. We can create far away waves. So this wave I'm going to make really dark. I'm just going to block her in just a little bit with this colour just so I know where it is. But by using a pastel sort of nice blue, we can have these waves that's not as harsh, not as mean, just sort of the tops of them. And because we've already laid down the colour underneath, now we're putting these waves over the top. It just looks more realistic. It gives a 3D effect, gives it texture. So make sure you leave plenty of gaps so the undercolour can shine through. And it will naturally, look, it will just naturally, if it comes too harsh, you can just soften it. It will naturally look like it's fading off into that light. So look, just use your finger to take out the harshness of the colour. So we've got these nice pastel waves to create the detail and the texture. But because obviously we've got a sunset, a lot of it's going to be silhouetted. So we're going to create some harsh waves now. So we're going to mix just pure cobalt blue and raw umber. So cobalt blue, raw umber, a tiny bit of purple if you want to. We're going to create a harsh wave. So this is going to have its back to the sunset. So where the sunset's over the ocean, this bit's getting hardly any sunlight because it's got its back to the light. So we're going to use a really harsh colour to imply a really big booming wave coming towards the shore, you see. I'm using a flat-headed brush. They are so much easier to paint waves. It's easy to paint straight lines. Obviously with oils, I've got quite a lot of paint on my brush. It's a bit bobbly, but it is much easier to paint a straight line. So there we go. It's pretty much straight. It's a bit bobbly, which is kind of cool. Kind of looks realistic. And we're going to use this colour to bring this wave forward. So what I was saying throughout the tutorial, by using darker colours, darker shadows, it brings it towards the viewer. So can you see now that pastel wave that we just laid down looks like it's far off into the distance. And now we're using the dark blues. It looks like it's bringing that towards the shore. It looks like it's coming towards you. So by using darker colours last, and only in the foreground, you can create the illusion of things that are near. So I'm just using this edge of this flat-headed brush to give a nice clear definition, a nice outline. So an easy way to paint waves in oil paints is to create the base colour, which we did with the lighter blues. And now we've got the darker blues. Look, you can just pull the dark blue across and it looks like it's curving round and creating the barrel of the wave. And because you've got that lighter blue underneath, now we're adding the darker blue and just pulling it down. It creates the illusion of a crashing wave. And look, you can even go sideways and just create little bubbles to create the illusion of sea foam and churn as it smashes into the beach. But that's all you have to do. Just lay the light colour first and then use the darker colour to create the texture. So let's have a wave coming here. Let's have another one here. So now we've got those lighter ones. We can have some darker ones to make it look more ferocious coming towards the viewer. So it's just combining the two. If you lay the lighter colours first and then use the darker colours over the top, just like we did with the clouds. And we can even use a fine liner, so I've just got a really small brush. Let's just make this area a little bit darker just by going over her. The same here, just using my fine liner. Just going to create a really harsh outline because it's going to be very much coming towards the viewer. So let's have another one, just a little bit of here on the left. And I'm going to add a little bit of black to the mix. So cobalt blue, raw umber, and a tiny bit of black. I'm just going to make this left hand side even more silhouetted, because remember we've got that cloud. And the same here on this edge. And underneath her, which is getting hardly any sunlight, so it's almost black as that wave rolls onto the shore. Let's say you can always add fine detail, you can always go more photorealistic. With the tutorial, obviously we're painting this in a one go, so we're going hardcore, we're doing it all in one. But you can, as I say, you can always paint the painting, and then you can come back to it once the oils are dry in a week or two and add some added details, some added highlights or shadows. But hopefully this tutorial is trying to teach you all the techniques that you can do it in one go. Don't forget, all of you guys at home, to tag me at Stuart Paintings here on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook with your version of the tutorials. It's awesome for me. I've met so many people from around the world just by seeing your work and sharing it on my Instagram. So all I'm doing, I'm taking some of the blue that we used at the top of the sky, which was cobalt blue, purple, a tiny bit of cerulean blue and white. And I'm just going to create some waves in our big wave here. So don't worry that you can't see much of it. We're just, I know it's smearing. We'll add some highlights towards the end. But all we want to do is just create the sort of base colour first. And then I'm just going to go back to my dark blue that we mixed and just create an outline around her. But we just want some churn as these big waves come towards the shore and they look like they're crashing into the shore. So the sky is pretty much done. Our ocean water is pretty much done. We'll work on the shimmer in a minute. We're going to just mix a colour now. So we're going to get some raw umber brown. And we just... So our clouds are pretty much done and our ocean water are pretty much done, that I'm happy with. So we're going to get some colour now and we're going to create some of the shimmer on this wet sand. So we're going to get some raw umber brown and we're just going to create some texture. So what we're going to have is just some dark shadow sort of shimmering in the sunlight. So this could be a bit of the shadow from something in the right hand side. We'll create a little bit of texture on this wet sand, you see. So again, just by using a fine liner, a really sharp, small, bristled brush, it makes it so much easier just to do little dots like we did with the clouds. So having the right brushes really helps. Just going to get some yellow and a bit of that raw umber brown mixed together to create sort of a mucky yellow. So I'm just going to make it a little bit softer. So just adding little bits of texture. Sometimes with the shimmer you've got to go back and forth. It's a bit like the clouds. We just want to lay the sort of base colour and then we'll add some of this detail over the top, you see. We'll try to work out the shimmer effect. So I'm just softening her with my finger. Just have some coming from underneath the waves. Let's get some cobalt blue and some brown and some purple, a little bit of black, just a tiny bit of black. And then what we'll do, while we're thinking of what to do with the shimmer, let's block in this cliff in the background. So cobalt blue, a little bit of purple, a little bit of brown, a little bit of black, but predominantly cobalt blue. And we're going to create this lovely silhouette of some faraway cliffs. Now we want this quite dark, because if the sun is setting, this is going to be all silhouetted. But we don't want to use just jet black, because jet black will bring it forward. So by having lots of cobalt blue, again we can trick the eyes. I used a big brush to block her in, and I just swapped to my fine liner to do the sharp detail here at the bottom. And because we've already got it outlined, I know exactly where the horizon is, so I can try to get a straight horizon. As I say, if you do muck up and you do get a wonky horizon or anything, let your painting dry for a week and you can always just straighten it out at a later date. And then while I've got that colour, because it is very, very dark and very, very shadowy, I'm just going to use it just to emphasise some of the shadows here in the foreground. So I'm just making these areas of the waves a little bit darker. Oh, it's starting to look so real. It's a great thing about painting, it all comes together towards the end. So I'm going to mix some lemon yellow and some white. So lemon yellow and some white. I'm just going to try to work out what I'm going to do with the shimmer. I was going to have a really bright shimmer on here. So we'll try it, see if it works. If you want at home, you can always just leave this bit for the time being, because you could follow me exactly, but you might get a bit of a mushing colour. So you might want to just hang on from painting the wet sand just for 2 minutes. So I'm going to add some Kaji yellow, because I change it in a minute, because I think this shimmer doesn't really quite work. So as I say, I like to leave this in the tutorial, because even myself, sometimes when you're looking at a reference photo, things you see it in your mind, and when you lay it on the canvas, it doesn't quite work. And the sign of being a great artist is having the guts to critique yourself, to know when things don't work, and to maybe go away from it and then come back to it and change it. So we've got this nice shimmer, but I think it's too light. So I'm just going to add some more Kaji yellow to the mix and a tiny bit of orange. I think it doesn't match the sky, because I like that glow in the sky, that sort of orangey yellow. So by putting some Kaji yellow and orange in. But the problem is, by doing that, it loses the shimmer sort of effect, the sort of brightness of the shimmer. So why don't we colour it in a little bit here, and then we'll see how it looks. Let's get some of this grey that we used originally when we laid her down, and let's make this a bit darker. So this area would be more in the shade, wouldn't it? So let's make this area darker now we've laid that shimmer down. Try to frame it. So again, by making edges of your paintings darker, it gets people to focus down the middle. So this would have a little bit of a shadow where that wave is coming, booming down onto it. So let's make this bit a little bit darker. And then let's just add a little bit in the middle here. I'm just taking a step back just to have a look at it, because when you're really close to a painting, sometimes you're too close to it. You need to step away and see if it looks realistic. So again, by making this side a bit darker, you can get the shimmer in the middle. Now I'm going to get some purple and brown and just add it to that grey. A little bit of white, just a tiny bit, and some cobalt blue. So we're always using the same colours. If you think we're using cobalt blue, brown, and purple, which is less white to make it darker and more white to make it lighter. And then while I've got that really dark grey, I'm just going to outline underneath my wave just to create a shadow effect, just to make it look harsher. So I'm just going underneath the wave. And again, I'm just creating the illusion of detail by just creating some texture on this wet sand. And then why not give it a... We'll put back some of that raw umber brown that we've covered up while we've been blending. So I'm just putting back some of the shadows. So this could be some seaweed or some rocks or bits and bobs on this beach. So we just get some harsh shadows. We're just using raw umber brown. And then where I was mixing that dark grey underneath the shadow, I've kind of taken away my dark outline. So I'm just going back. I'm just using a fine liner. I'm just using some black, some cobalt blue, some purple and brown. So the same colour as the cliffs. And then I'm going to mix some orange, some cad yellow and lots of white. So orange, cad yellow and lots of white to get the colour of our sunset. So just here where that glow is above the cliffs, we're just going to match that. And now we've got all the detail back, we're just going to put the shimmer back on. And we're just going to match the colours. So think of a mirror, we're just trying to match the same colour in that sky just above that cliff top. And we're just going to put that on the wet sand, just so it looks like it's shimmering down. So that looks kind of the same. And then as we come down, it gets a bit more golden in the sky. So we're just going to add more cad yellow to the mix. So loads of cad yellow to the mix. Tiny bit of white, but not much. Just so it matches the glow in the sky. And it goes from orange to that more golden yellow. So we're just reflecting that down on the shimmering sand. So there we go, so that's looking nice and matching. And then we're going to take raw umber brown and some of the dioxide purple, and we're going to mix it together to create a dark silhouetted colour for our sand. So plenty of each. So raw umber brown and purple. I'm just going to speed up the footage because all I'm doing is just blocking in with this colour for the sand. So there's nothing technical. So rather than sit here for a few minutes while I just block in one colour, I may as well just fast forward it for you. So all it is raw umber and dark side purple. Just mix the two even amount and then just use the big brush, and then we want to create a nice silhouetted sand. We don't want to use black because that would be a bit too dark. So by using this brown and purple, we can insinuate the sands in the shade. So there we go. So just all block her in. So just finish her off, and that should nicely frame the painting. Can't sign her because obviously she's still wet, but we've got this nice dark sand and we've got this nice shimmer on our sand. So what we're going to do now is go take some of the sky colour, which was lots and lots and lots of white, a dab of Naples yellow and a dab of purple. And now I am going to put the shimmer, so I'm just going to use this sharp edge of the brush just to create the shimmer of the wet water. So it looks like it's shimmering as it peels back. And then we've got that lovely sunset colour on the wet sand shining through. And that looks a lot more realistic, that looks much better. So I'm glad we got there in the end. So as I say, sometimes you've just got to jiggle things about and test it. And then what I'm going to do with the edge of this brush, I'm just going to use this same colour, this sky colour, just to add some highlights on my sea foam of the waves, of the crashing waves. So I'm just putting some of this really nice sort of whitey purple. I'm not using pure white because if you use white it will look very cartoony. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to match the exact colours in the sky with the exact colours of the ocean. And that's what tricks the eye and creates the realism, you see. So we can add some in the foreground here on this wave. And then all I've done just to finish her off, I've just merged here the colour of the sky with the ocean. So where that dark grey cloud is coming, we've got a nice just sort of merging between the sky and the ocean. And if you want to, you can take your time and you can poke more holes, more sky holes in your clouds. But I think she's finished. So as I say, I can't sign her because she's still wet, being oils. But we've got this lovely sunset over the ocean where you've learnt how to go from the orange and create a buffer zone and then into the blue to frame it. And we've got this lovely pushback wispy clouds where you've learnt how to put sky holes. We've got this lovely silhouetted cliff tops to bring that forward towards the viewer. We've got the merging between the ocean and the sky, and you've learned how to paint waves in oil paints and shimmering sand and create a really hyper-realistic oil painting in less than an hour for free, which is awesome thanks to YouTube. So my name is Murray. Thank you so much. We have plenty of acrylic and oil paintings here on my channel, plenty of tutorials, so please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And don't forget to tag me at mstuartpaintings with your versions. See you soon. Happy painting. Take care. Bye.